going on, everybody, for the 100 Line interview series. My name is Nuke, and today we're joined by Tom Mitchells. They're the voice director for the 100 Line Last Defense Academy, and they've also worked on other titles like Baldur's Gate 3 and Dying Light 2. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, I try to make this show like hot ones, and while I don't have hot wings or cold drinks like on cold ones for the both of us, I'll still do my best to be as entertaining as I can possibly be. How does that sound?
That sounds delightful.
So, when you look back at all of the work that you've done just in gaming in general, is there a certain project that you're particularly impressed with, given the story they were wanting to tell?
Ooh, well, that's a very interesting one. I mean, I've done a plethora of varying degrees of narrative design. I will undoubtedly always have a soft spot for the work that was put into Baldur's Gate 3. With just the sheer breadth of possibility within the present moment of the world and how reactive that it is. 100 Line is a great example of a narrative I'm very fond of in terms of that reactivity to parallel universes and genre bending, and really just embracing how the chaos theory, the butterfly effect of how something so inconsequential ends up having an incredibly different chain of events. And then there's a game I worked on recently called The Altars, where I was a supporting voice director, where the narrative is more about the philosophical, the what if, the questioning our choices in life, and how our personal choices can lead to quite morally disrupting circumstances. So I can't give you a single, but I can definitely give you that as my top three. It's hard because they're great for all their varying reasons. Those three have unique identities, and I would probably put those as the top three.
So, what was the biggest challenge in bringing the story from a Japanese to an English audience for you as a voice director? And did anything about the game's tone or style surprise you once you were in the recording booth?
Oh, there are a lot of surprises, all right. Well, yeah, the main thing that I wanted to do when undertaking this game was I needed to tell the story as authentically and as respectfully as possible to the originators of the project, so Kodaka-san and Uchikoshi-san, and the work that they put in, and all the other story writers. We were working sort of, I suppose, in tandem with Tokyo. We weren't necessarily working for Tokyo. They set everything up. They gave us everything. They gave us all the tools, and then they worked with a localization company who undertook that localization for the Western audiences and English-speaking audiences. And our job was to kind of put ourselves in a bracket where we are honoring the originality that the creators were putting into 100 Line, but also presenting it in a way that would be palatable to a Western audience. So fortunately, the two developers, the two directors, both have a catalogue of things that we can pull from for inspiration, but also we were given enough of a freedom, enough of a slack to go through the journey and see what comes out from these characters from our perspective, because there are things that work in the Japanese, in the original Japanese performances and the original Japanese writing that work for that sect of the culture, but when we're working in English speaking and Western cultures, things need to not deviate but change slightly in order to make sense and fit our world and vernacular and lexicon and idioms, which did end up having some really fun surprises. I think the biggest one, first and foremost, was we always put in the forefront of our minds that the majority of these characters are teenagers. How would teenagers react to some of the crazy twists? And sort of how was I reacting in the moment when our VO support translator sort of explained the context to us and the major plot moments, and how I'd react in that moment, or how we would react in that moment. We put that kind of feel into the game because we wanted that responsivity. We wanted that feeling of chemistry, that these kids were really living the moment, as opposed to just being vessels for storytelling. They were actually in the story themselves.
You worked alongside the original creators like Kodaka and Uchikoshi. How did you collaborate with the Japanese development team to ensure your voice direction matched their vision?
So yeah, I only met Kodaka-san and Uchikoshi-san once over Zoom, and they said nothing other than hello, because we worked mainly with the localization team. So I worked for as a director for an audio outsource company. So the company that often gets sort of booked to source the vocal talent and the direction and the dialogue editing and cleanup process. That was with a company I worked for as a freelancer called OM UK, that are based in London. And our client, if you like, was a localization company, and as a result, their client was Tokyo Games. I think the localization company is called Active Game Media. I think that was and they're based in Osaka, in Japan. I think it's Osaka. But yeah, ultimately they were our main port of call. So any sort of communications or anything that we needed to sort of get over to the client, as in the Tokyo Games, if there was anything we needed from them, assets, artwork, cutscenes, anything like that, we would go through AGM in order to sort of acquire those assets for our production process. But it's a fun relationship because they worked unbelievably hard to localize something like that, because it's all well and good localizing a linear story, with one choice. It just goes in one path and that's it. But they had to go through this entire branching thing. But also you needed the VO support people and the head of translation, Cal, who was a godsend during our production process, where they needed to translate scene context. When we're in a production process, we require things like context. What on earth is going on? Can we have it, please? And when you're working on a script that big, people just don't have the time to localize context. So the VO support was so useful to us, and the translators were so useful to us, because they were able to read the context in Japanese and give us the context in the moment, which was great, because then we didn't need to plan as much. We could just, like I said earlier, we could respond in the moment. Like, how are we reacting to this piece of information? Okay, that's how some of these characters would react in that moment. And it became just a real, I suppose, like all hands on deck kind of situation, where everyone knew what their job was and what they had to do, and as a result it worked really, really well. And because Tokyo worked so hard with their vision and what they were after from the incredibly talented Japanese cast, it made things very easy for us in order to figure out the archetypes of everybody very, very quickly, but then also allow the actors not to just carbon copy what the Japanese actors were doing, but more so bring their version of it into the world. And yeah, I'm very proud of what everyone was able to achieve over the course of that crazy 3-month period.
I mean, absolutely, you should be. I mean, man, I love that game. Absolutely. So I read your blog, and you're a little inactive, but I read on your Magic of Monotony post that you argued that sometimes less is more, and that monotony can actually enhance immersion in games. Did you apply that idea when directing 100 Lines actors, and can you give an example? No.
No. Absolutely not. No. You think this was understated? No. I appreciate you saying I was a little inactive on my blog. Yeah, that was just, I don't have the time to do that anymore. But yeah, no, it's a very good question. So the way I talk about performance in video games is that it falls into a spectrum, because the genres and art direction for video games and narrative design, they are so vast and wide that you need performances that cater to each individual case. So you have your incredibly grounded, naturalistic, gritty performances. A good example would be Last of Us Part 2, right? That's like your example of like a super grounded, super gritty, this is reality, this is real life. And then you can then flip everything up to the other side, which is the bombastic, the crazy, the over the top performances, right? And then you have everything in the middle. And the thing with that particular post that I did years ago is that I was working on a triple. I was working on Dying Light 2. That was what I was working on, and it struck me about that balance of a lot of people that I was working with, where we were doing the world building. So we're talking NPCs you walk past in an open world where you're not reacting to them, you're not interacting, you're just walking by in a street or an alleyway or a market, and they are just having those subtle conversations between them. And to try and make the incredible thing about doing something like world building, where you are directing tens of people to be hundreds of NPCs, is that you are working towards the objective of making stuff just fit, as opposed to making anything stand out. So in order to make things fit, you have to bring less vibrancy and less intrigue by the players. You just want it to be a snapshot of normal people living this really crazy life. And yeah, that's what sort of inspired that sort of post about the magic of monotony, because yeah, a lot of the time I would just give the simple note of make it boring, make me be completely disinterested in what you have to say, and they would deliver it in a very flat conversational tone, and I go, perfect, that's exactly what we're after. And then you apply that to tens, hundreds of NPCs all just having little conversations amongst themselves. That's what really lands it. Now, the 100 line is the polar opposite. When I came into that, it was a case of not all the dialogue is voiced, as we all know. There's about 24,000 lines that were recorded with the voice, and there's like, I don't know, 6 novels worth of actual lines in the game. So that was a decision made. Not only, no one has the budget to voice every single line in their game unless they are ridiculous, like quadruple, quintuple A. But for this, every line that's voiced in a visual novel is a line of significance. There is a reason why that line has been picked. So every single line has to have that significance. But also, because you're working with this incredible art style and art direction, and everything is a bit sci-fi, it's a bit out there, it's wacky, it's about, Takumi Sumino, who is the ordinary boy thrown into an extraordinary situation, and he's the straight lead, right? And then you have all of these characters around him just being chaos whilst he's experiencing it, because the Takumi represents the player experiencing all of this craziness, to which you can't really have Darumi understated, right?
No, not at all.
You can't downplay Darumi, you can't downplay Kurara. You have to have them be that level of vibrancy in order to sell those moments, especially because we're working with CGs and caption boxes, that you're kind of wanting to elevate that experience from a Switch or from a PC by giving more vibrancy, to allow that feeling of responsivity for the player, just to really accentuate those moments in the story.
Right. So there was absolutely no monotony in this game. So we got that. So on the flip side of that Magic of Monotony blog, the game also has a lot of high stakes and emotional moments. How do you guide actors through those moments without losing realism? And can you describe a scene or line that took a lot of care or multiple takes to get just right?
Ooh, yeah.
And also I want to know how you nailed it specifically.
Oh, well, thank you. But also, well, spoiler. Probably the end of True Root is a good example of getting weight and, really, really landing those blows.
It was
One
so
of my
deep.
one of my one of my favorite moments. It's funny because it's like some of my favorite moments working on this are either the really wacky out there moments that were really, really funny, hilarious, but also the really just those moments that are meant to gut punch you. And the ending of the True Root was definitely one of those. I mean, working with Leader Louis on Nozomi for that very end was just one of the most incredible moments, because we were just working to the cutscene mainly, but that interaction between Takumi and Nozomi right towards the end, when it's just those two. The great thing about the way I can direct at places like OMUK is that when one actor has recorded their lines, so say it's like a scene with two characters, right? OMUK has this thing that they devised called the Creative Dialogue Tools, CDT. And basically what we can do is that we can record, let's say Jay as Takumi in that moment. We record all of his lines in his session. We immediately take those lines and put them into CDT, and it means that we can play in the moment to Leader Louis the Takumi's lines, so that they can bounce off as Nozomi in real time. So we can do scenes. A lot of people often who are familiar with behind the scenes of video game recording, they see it as, okay, we've got a line, give me 2 takes of that, give me 3 takes of that, and then we move on to the next line. Or it's the director reading in if we're going to do things by a scene. But what we're actually doing is allowing actors to bounce off what is going to be in the game, so that you have the most honest chemistry in those moments between the two. But yeah, Jay and Louis working on that scene towards the end, man, that was a good moment. But then also doing that style of recording works well for all the funny stuff as well, and so we can often, the comedy route for instance was just easy for everyone to riff off because they had all of that interactivity in the moment. And it really does help. But yeah, that for me was definitely a big one. Trying to think if there was something else. It's been that long that I'm like, oh my god, I can't remember all the routes. Because people refer to them as by their titles, and then I have to really think and go, okay, what was that one? Like the coming of age route, I get sometimes confused with the romance route and the casual, and I'm like, oh my god, it all blends into one. But yeah, definitely the true ending was, that bit was really powerful, and we wanted it to be powerful. We wanted that moment to really, really stick, because the true ending is what people are aiming for. I know there's this belief that whatever ending is your favorite is your true ending, but the canonical, if you like, ending, we really needed to get right.
I'll say Ina Marie Smith rapping as Ava was probably my favorite scene from the comedy route, so y'all nailed that.
Yeah, that was the rap in the comedy route is my magnum opus. It was oh my god, I loved that bit so much. Who was it we had? We had Andrew, Alexander, Vanessa, Christopher, and Ina. Yeah, and the best bit is we were given no beat, we were given nothing. We were just given the words, and I had to come up with the rhythm of the rap in the moment. And I think Andrew as Takamaru was first, so it was either that or it was Alexander who was Gaku. He might have been first. So basically, I think actually it was Alexander that was first. So I had to fill in as Andrew and basically go, well, how does this rap start? And then Alexander had to then come in with the beat afterwards. So I had to compose the rhythm for everybody, but also have those finite moments of, okay, Kyoshika is a bit shit because she doesn't know music that well because she's just read everything. So she's like really trying hard but not quite making it.
Ava doesn't either, to be honest.
Ava is just, unfortunately the Stepford wife at that for a majority of the game. So just letting that land as the final beat. But my favourite bit was Jay's reaction, because I just went, this is where everything is ridiculous, and as the straight lead, you are just going, this is not, why is everyone like this? What's happening? So just having that little button of him going, what in God's name, was just, it was just so much fun. I would love to relive directing the comedy route again. It was the best.
The ending where he's like, "Oh my god, shut up already!" Did that take a couple takes to get right?
No,
That was one take.
I'm pretty sure that was a one-take wonder.
Wow.
I think it was either the first take, or it was it was the second take. We try not to do too many takes unless there's something really specific we're after, because I wanted that style in this game. I wanted the style of spontaneity and surprise, because we're being surprised all the time in this game, so the performances should also surprise us without being predictable. So encouraging Jay to basically just completely lose it. He doesn't care if he explodes. He's just going to say everything, and it's like, fine, I'll pull the pin out of the grenade, I don't care, fuck you all. And just like allowing that anger to just build. But the way he says the same tiny car right at the very end, that line it's so good. But just like witnessing it in the moment and working with the engineer and seeing how the engineer reacts in the session, because that's sort of like the litmus test. I'm like, if I'm laughing and the engineer's laughing and the client on the call are laughing, then it's going in. I can't do any more than that.
It's absolutely fair. So you also wrote once about getting fired from a video game VO job and the 6 lessons you learned from that experience. So I'm curious how that setback changed you as a director, and if there's any influence from your time back then that influenced you here with 100 Line.
Oh, that's funny. That's a great question. Yes, I did get fired from a game.
Sorry to make you relive it.
No. Funnily enough, I'm quite chummy with one of the guys that was on that was a developer for that game. So that was when I was an actor, and I still am an actor. But that was, ironically, that was before I became a director. But I suppose certain things happen, right? And now that I work in production, or I see more of how, forgive the phrase, I see more of how the sausage is made. And the way games are made are so complicated and so complex, and dialogue production is just a small part of it. There's so much that goes into it, and so many reasons why things change. Ideas change, scripts change, characters change all the time, that it is just one of those where I learn from that experience predominantly that things can change at a moment's notice. And unfortunately with the past couple of years, there are games being cancelled, shelved, postponed. Game studios are dealing with restructuring and redundancies, that you just have to live in the present and just enjoy the moment. And to kind of answer your question about how it influences my directing, I always want to make sure that everybody is just living in the moment and enjoying themselves and enjoying what we do. I try not to take away from the enjoyment of the experience for the actor in the booth, but also the people that are working on the other side of the glass. So myself, or the engineer, the mocap engineer, or the clients that are listening on the call. I'm always of the mindset of, we're not doing open heart surgery. We're making a video game, right? We're not breaking new ground in saving lives. We're we're creating a piece of entertainment, so we can do that, still be professional, but also enjoy the experience. And that's sort of always been a bit of my, I suppose, ethos as a director, is, you know, just to whatever happens to the project, whatever happens to the material, or whatever happens to the actor's performance when it's recorded, whatever's done with it, as long as we had fun in the session, that's really all that matters to me. And then whatever happens after that is out of our control.
Does your background as an actor give you a different perspective now as a voice director?
Yeah, it really does. It gives me a lot of empathy towards working in studios with people. It's a little bit like you go through an experience yourself as an actor, and I come from a theatre background initially, and then I got the hook for working in games, and I went, well, I'm sold. But when I worked in theatre, I had negative experiences with the way actors were handled by creatives, directors, choreographers, etc. And I always kind of looked at that and gone, you can create art without belittling, aggression, you know, bullish behavior. You can still make things and create things under time pressured scenarios, but still make it really positive and optimistic. And therefore, as a result, I have a lot of empathy towards actors, and will always try and keep sessions actor led. So safety of an actor, comfort of an actor, is always at the forefront of my mind when it comes to anything that we're working on. Even if it's just, you know, okay, we've got this guy coming in doing 50 lines for Soldier 3 in this, you know, bang bang shooter, but always got to make sure he's okay, his voice is fine. You know, things like vocal health are very important. You know, you don't want to wreck that actor's week just for your 2-hour session. So you know, you have to really like manage people and wrangle people around in the right way. But yeah, no, it really does. It really has helped having those different perspective shifts, because oftentimes you can kind of clock if something's not right with a performer in the booth, because I've made that face before. And so I go, okay, I know what they're thinking. Let's have a break and sort it out. And yeah, we can. It's easier for problem solving and optimization.
Yeah, and I remember you worked with Ashley voicing Veshness, and I remember there's a recording of her in the booth just screaming and going nuts, right? So can you tell us about that? I imagine that's a good example of, you know, how you maintained, you know, the actor's health, and, you know, when they have a very particularly demanding scene, right?
Yeah, well, that line in particular of that video, you know, that was just in all caps, right? And it's Veshness just going off the wall crazy. And so when I see a line like that, I go, right, I've not got many shots at this. So because I know what Ashley is capable of, at that point I'd worked with Ashley for goodness knows how many hours on that particular game. I've worked with Ashley before. So I knew what Ashley was capable of. So I went, okay, just give me everything. Gasket blowing, everything. Just give me everything. And then the only thing I needed to change was just like come a step down from that, because I think she was just being a bit. I think her, like, she was getting some like cracks in there. I didn't want the cracks because Veshness is like super all powerful. So for her character, Veshness wouldn't go all cracky. So it was more for the vocal quality I wanted to change. And so the second time, Ashley did it without the cracks, and it worked perfect.
I actually heard that, and I was actually shocked to know that you were like, yeah, can we tone that down just a little bit?
It's just a subtle thing. It's like, oh, well, they both sound crazy to me. I said, yeah, but that's when I'm showing truth to the character itself, and then that was just all that needed changing. And that's a purely technical, soundy type direction. Sometimes I'll do it through emotion, but for this one, it was more just, I want you to give me one step down from like 100%. Give me 99% rather than 100, because I knew it was around there that I needed it to work. And then yeah, second take, done. It was the select.
Also, I love how in the game there was a recording where Joseph's character, Side, And it was on day 69 where he goes, "Yeah, let's do the fucking badassery," and he got in a voice crack in there, and that made it into the final product, which was so funny to me.
Yeah! With our adrenaline pumped to the max, in the name of the fucking badassery of humanity, let's kill the shit out of these nasty pigs and protect the hell out of our beloved academy!
Yeah, because I wanted people to know that this game is self-aware as to how ridiculous it is sometimes, and the fact that he did just go, fucking badassery, it was that bit of the line where because that was the first take, because it was, again, that thing about spontaneity, and I clocked when the game was released that people caught that and resonated with it, and they were all going, "Oh my god, the voice actors had so much fun on this." It's because they did, and that was what I wanted to come across, just in that overall tone of, we're aware that this is crazy. Part of the marketing of this game from Kodaka-san and Ichikoshi-san was, this is chaos. This game is nothing like it. And so I wanted a little bit of that sort of punk rock style to come into the recording booth as well. Oh yeah. God, I loved working with Joe on Sirei. It was so much fun. There were so many moments I could talk about with Sirei.
Were there any other just interesting tidbits that you had from recording 100 Line? Just any particular moments that you were like, you know what, I'll remember that for a while?
There were loads. There were some things I really enjoyed doing. I like using sort of references. So there are loads of pop culture references anyway in the game, but I also wanted to use pop culture references in in performances in those little moments. A good example is Sirei, Joseph May's Sirei is very different to the Japanese actor's Sirei, simply because if I'm not mistaken, Kodaka-san just heard the Japanese actor's Sirei and it completely took him by surprise. He found it hilarious and went, "Yeah, I want him." When they auditioned for it, and then for Joseph, he approached it more like a General Patton style kind of delivery. World War II, Roosevelt. It's all about war. So went more about down the crazy army general route, and so that really gave us a bit of a lexicon and a bit styles to come out with. The drill sergeant in Full Metal Jacket.
I was actually thinking about that, as you were talking about. I was thinking,
yeah. But the announcements, because the announcements, of course, skippable quite often. In we talk about Danganronpa, and everybody skips Monokuma's announcements because it's the same thing again and again. But I wanted to reward people for not skipping the numbers, right? Because we recorded all of them back to back.
I imagine that had to have been just we're only on 52.
Oh yeah, poor Joseph. But yes, but so I wanted the identity of those announcements to be unique to Joseph's interpretation of Sirei. So I pulled from Robin Williams in Good Morning Vietnam as that really rambunctious, bombastic, time to rise and shine, really letting that operatic powerhouse come through. It's like he's your triple espresso in the morning. The one thing I wanted to do is, because of what happens with the fact that Sirei gets offed very quickly in prologue, but all the announcements continue recording, is that we played it as though Sirei recorded all of these back to back as we were doing in the moment. So again, pulling from reality. And I just kept saying to Joseph, I said, every now and again, Sirei just gets a bit bored, so he just finds ways of saying the numbers that entertain him and his reaction to saying things. I think there's there was one that I did where I was like, okay, it's day it's definitely not this one, but it's like, imagine it's day 39, and I just want you to be like, oh my god, it's day 39, and he just reacted like, it's day 39, like he's looking at a cue card, being like, oh my god, what a crazy number. It's just so stupid. It's so stupid, but yeah, I really wanted to reward people for listening to all of those day announcements, because yeah, there's some like little extra things in there that we did where he just goes really unhinged. It was really fun. There's a lot of Sire stuff I love. The way he says "quit calling it junk" in the comedy route. He had a lot of references. Oh, the one of the endings to the comedy route, it's just him with the black background going to thank you for listening to the story. That took inspiration from what's his name? Rod Serling from The Twilight Zone, and just that like very deadpan kind of eerie delivery, which then he flips around by saying "Die mad losers." I'm not telling you suck on that, die mad losers. I mean, what an ending! What an ending! What was the other reference? Oh, just really small, subtle things. One of my favorites was Darumi in one of the cutscenes when one of the commanders shows up. I can't remember which one it is. It might be Shanshin, the worm. And there's like a bit where the Japanese actor for Darumi goes na 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 because of how big it is, and I just went. We were big Simpsons fans in the studio, and I wanted to include one, so naturally I replaced that with Darumi doing a Western version of "Oh my god, that's really big." So I got her to say "Yowie." Oh god, what's her name? Not Miss Krabappel. Oh god, what's her name? Lisa's teacher, and she goes "Yowie," and Lisa goes, "I've never heard her say Yowie." So I just thought I'm going to subtly put that in, just as a little, again, pop culture reference that some people might be like, "Oh my god, that's a real stretch," but it aided the performance, and just Darumi knew what she was doing in that moment. in my head canon, Darumi is a Simpsons fan, and she was just referencing.
Was there other examples of references that like you knew was going to work and you loved to record it?
Oh god, I mean all of the above that I've already talked about, but I think it was just that feeling of, really just embracing the genre shift, and just seeing where things take us and where they go. And usually it would just be like a line here or there where I go, "Have you ever seen that film where da da da?" There was one that I gave Jay in a comedy route where I basically just wanted him to say something like, what are you talking about, might have been the line. I can't remember, but I wanted him to say it like Edna Mode in The Incredibles when she's responding to Elastigirl. It's like, "What are you talking about?" And I went, "Can you just say it a little bit like that for me?" And I'd like literally get the YouTube video up, play the clip, and he just goes, "Yep, I'll say it like that, no problem." So it's like getting around a director giving a line reading by going, it's just a pop culture reference. Another one was for Jay was a reference to a film starring Pierce Brosnan called Taffin, but he basically has a line where he goes, "Well, maybe you shouldn't be living here," and I can't remember what the line was, but it's there somewhere. I think it's like, "Why are you doing this to me?" or something like that. It's so throwaway. It's in the comedy route, but there was an edited version of that line from Taffin where Pierce Brosnan says, "And maybe you shouldn't be living here," and they really sustain it for a good like 10-15 seconds, and I went, "Can you please say it like this, Jay?" And bless him, he did. But I think the most powerful, again, you can clip all this out. I talk in long answers.
No, it's okay. No, I'm loving this. This is a great answer.
One of my I think most powerful references that I gave Jay, especially for Takumi, is that he throughout his journeys he goes from being the teenage boy, mediocre life, doesn't really aspire to much, to then growing in this leadership position, and therefore his confidence grows. And we needed something that would hit that moment where his confidence grows, but there'll be something that sort of pulls the rug from underneath him at those specific plot twist moments, or the more comedic moments, or the more emotional moments. And it actually came to a point where the shorthand direction to Jay would be, just make it Marty McFly. And when you really sort of like dive into the sort of attack of certain lines that Jay gives to Kumi, we go for the more Michael J. Fox, voice cracking. You know, he's a kid, right? And he's experiencing something crazy. So especially when we travel back in time, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I know exactly what's going to happen. I'm going to lead us through this." As soon as the first thing goes wrong, he gets that knockback. In which case, we used Marty McFly as a sort of silhouette, if you like, just to sort of find that like teenager sort of timidness again. Where he's not so mature, because it's quite easy to make characters super mature and write them as adults. So we want to make sure that we're still giving them that thing of no, they're still kids. They're still like finding things out and figuring themselves out, and so finding that innocence in things like a vocal imprint, like a voice crack, really does seal the deal.
If you had to pick a character from any piece of media to help you work on voice directing, which would it be and why?
What, is in to help me in the studio?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, well, I can't say I've ever thought about it before. But I suppose.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very creative question. Someone to help me. I mean, I suppose Wheatley from Portal 2 would probably be a good one. No, just to kind of. I'm talking like early Wheatley, not like when he goes evil.
Okay.
I think having him sort of like clumsily give his version of context or like assistance throughout the recording process, because we have to use spreadsheets and stuff all the time when it comes to directing games, that sometimes my Excel knowledge isn't great. So it'd be nice to have someone like Wheatley be able to explain what I need to do, as you know. Glad as Shell would be directed around a puzzle with companion cubes. Wheatley could maybe guide me through how on earth I do an array search as a formula. That'd be lovely.
So I'm just curious. Do you have any like mementos like from the cast at all, and how was it working in 100 line with all of them?
Oh yeah. Well, I like to keep little mementos in my home studio. I try to get like. If there's a collector's edition, I'll get the collector's edition, which I did for this, because I just want all the little tidbits and all the fun stuff. But we had a wrap party with all of as much of the cast that were available. We had a wrap party at the studio just to kind of seal the deal. You know, we did a 341 hours worth of recording. I think we deserved a party at the end of it. But what I always try to do is I get a little memento signed by the cast. We've got Elsie there. We've got Jay here. Andrew Wilden Dennis. Min, who I know you've spoken to. Ash next to Nigo. Louis down here. Megan Martin, who was Kako. Yeah, it was just who I could get hold of at that moment in time. I got them to sign it. I still need to get a frame for it. But,
you gotta get a frame for that.
I do need to get a frame for it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Mitchells. And so if this was Hot Ones, you know, Sean Evans would say this camera, this camera, or this camera, but I only have one, so I'm just gonna say let the people know what you have going on in your life. What can you share legally? Are you going to any cons, and where can people find you?
No, I won't be going to any cons. I'm unfortunately, you know, I'm one of those people where it's like I'll only go if someone pays me. I'm very, very busy at the minute with all sorts of stuff. But so just recently I had The Alters came out just recently. which, if you're into your base building, philosophical sci-fis, the Altars is something that I got to work on as a supporting voice director. So I was a substitute teacher. I came in every now and again working with Alex Jordan, but it is a very, very good, thought-provoking 20-hour indie game that has done really, really well. It's been received really well, and yeah, the work that Damien Goodwin and Kate Saxon did on their direction, specifically Damien Goodwin with Alex Jordan, is incredible. Alex basically plays 11. Well, Alex plays his main character Jan Dolsky, but then is also 10 clones of himself, where each one has a different personality and characteristic, an alter ego, hence alters, which was such a joy to witness. So yeah, if you're wanting something a bit different, that gets you thinking, but also has a very big replayable factor, then I highly recommend that. I'm also going to be in a gacha game soon. That's coming out. I can't say what it is, but keep an eye out on my social media. I'll be announcing it soon. So if you like your gacha games, that's something that you can get involved with. And then yeah, there's just lots of stuff I'm working on at the minute. I've got a few releases coming up, so if you like following me on social media, please continue to do so, and you'll see those announcements soon. Whereas, otherwise, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and yeah, keep up to date with everything I'm doing, and I'll reveal them soon.